Hello again. Now it's time for you to learn equivalence partitioning. It's a fairly straightforward technique, and you would use it when there are more than one set of boundaries to test. We will now look at a few examples, so let's start by adding additional monetary boundaries to the example from our last lesson. The boundaries we created in the last lesson can now be enhanced, and they will look something like this. As you can see, there are now 3 partitions, and you may also notice a few symbols you may or may not be familiar with. In the first partition, it lists values of less than $10. You may be wondering how I know this. Well, we have introduced a new symbol at the upper end of this boundary. It's arrow-shaped and pointing left. This symbol means less than. In this case, it means less than $10, which will effectively mean $9.99 or less. If it's possible on the software package, you will also need to test for negative values. However, if it's not possible to create them and you see a negative value, log it as a defect. The second partition remains the same as it was in the previous lesson. You may have noticed that the third partition is different because there is no upper boundary. This partition also contains another arrow symbol, this time facing right, and it means greater than. In this case, it could be anything from $100.01 to an infinite number. As you can clearly see, each partition attracts a different level of discount. Let's see how many tests we may reasonably create from this example to give a good test coverage. We will review each partition to see how this may work. In the first partition, we would test the upper boundary of $9.99. There would be another test of $0 as this may be a valid value if free items are given away. You may also want to consider a negative value if the application allows it. This partition has no lower boundary, so we would apply some common sense. In the second partition, you would run 4 of the 6 tests we identified in the previous lesson. 2 tests for the upper and lower limits, then 2 tests for values near to the boundaries. There is no need to run tests outside of the lower or upper boundaries, as these are already covered in other partitions. The last partition specifies values over $100, so we would test the nearest value of $100.01. As there is no upper limit, you would again apply some common sense to prove that large values could be input successfully. In all, you now have 9 tests, and these give you pretty good coverage. Maybe you may want to add some more. That's entirely up to you, and there's no harm in doing so. Just remember, you are likely to cover 80% of the functionality with 20% of your tests. So it's up to you and your test manager to judge what looks right. You have now seen a worked example of how equivalence partitioning can help to create an efficient set of tests. We can now start to think about testing something other than monetary values. Come and join me in the next lesson to look at some good examples. Remember, all lessons are free, so please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing and allows us to keep creating free content for you.